Hello, my name is Gabriel Gray, and today I will be presenting the idea of indifference in my life to the African society. I'll be using the book Things Fell Apart by Chinua Achebe to show this. The book Things Fell Apart is placed in Africa in the 19th century, which means this is before and kind of during European colonization. Throughout my life, I have always heard about how poor and hunger-ridden Africa is, and never thought to divulge my thought into why they were like this. I was indifferent to their struggle, as it was not my life, and I have always had a life of such ease. I have been indifferent my entire life until reading this book, which gave me small insights into why the African people were struggling. Something that I have always thought is that it's not my fault that they're struggling. I didn't do this to them. But after reading this book, I realized it may not have been me personally, it may not have been my parents, my grandparents, but my ancestors, being as that I am European, did partake in this. They are the reason the African people are struggling. They were a very big driving factor to this because they forced their civilization, the European civilization, onto the Africans who may not have been ready, or even most of them didn't even want to be European. But another thing that I realized is that something I used to always say was, oh, they're so far away, being as they are 6,135 miles away from my current location in Hendersonville. And I think that's crazy. I used to, I was saying, oh, they're so far away, there's nothing I can do. But there is. Maybe I not gave them relief or helped out Nigeria sending funds or going to Nigeria to help people out, but at least I would have learned about their story. I wouldn't have been indifferent to what was going on around. And honestly, if you think about it, it's kind of horrible how we didn't even consider that kind of things. And if I would have looked into it, everything would have been alright. The reason that I chose Things Fall Apart was for the purpose of reading a story from the African point of view. Most books that we read in America are not put in the African point of view, and they're put within the Europeans' point of view, which I've heard countless times over, and it's too much, because the Europeans thought what they were doing was the correct thing. They thought, oh, this is what we're doing. But if you see it through Okonkwo's eyes and everyone else's, especially through Okonkwo, you can tell that he doesn't enjoy this. He didn't want this to happen. He loved his life before. And then the Europeans imposed their will on their village, and they were forced into it. After truly hearing about this, it helps stop my indifference. And I'm able to truly think about how shocking this was for the Africans. No longer indifferent to the African people, or more specifically, the people of Nigeria. This book gave me great insights into a life I never had, and most likely never will have. I may not help the cause as much as I could or should, but I will understand why they are still struggling. In certain areas of Nigeria, even though my life is completely opposite of Okonkwo's, I'm very, I'm still very, I'm still able to connect with him. Because the reason I'm able to connect with him is he is so driven, and I'm so driven. He wants to be better than his predecessors, because his father was not honorable. He dishonored their entire family, left them to starve some days, and the people of their village just knew how bad he was. They didn't like him because he didn't do anything. And so Okonkwo, coming from this father, had to make a name for himself so that he wasn't known as, from being dishonorable. And that's what he did. And that's what I want to do. Even though my family is not dishonorable at all, I still want to be better than my already very successful family. And despite me and Okonkwo both wanting to be better, he just had to regain honor, but I have to get over things like doing something better than my parents and grandparents, even though they've already done amazing feats. Okonkwo and I also share something, though, and that is impatience. I am a very impatient person. I can't deal with too much of anything. If someone is taking too long to do something that shouldn't take them that long, or anything like that, I just can't tolerate it. And that's the exact same thing with Okonkwo. He's very quick-tempered, and that can get to him sometimes. But even though we are similar when it comes down to impatience, I do not, of course, beat a wife I do not have, or, beat children, which of course I also do not have. I don't live in Africa, I live in Hendersonville, Tennessee, and so there are still those very opposite categories. But with the information that I have learned throughout reading this book and researching it, I'll be able to be more careful with my thoughts about Africa, because I'll be able to understand why they have this struggle, and know it from the African point of view, because all I'd heard before this was the European point of view and how we had done such a good thing to the African people. If more people read this story, though, they'd be able to understand better the African story, and not just what Western history books, stories, or accounts of what white Europeans did in Africa. I care enough to stop the indifference about Nigeria and Africa within myself and anyone who I end up talking with about this subject. I may not care about this enough to go and tell other people, or get on a global scale, but I still very much care about this. If I hear someone talking about Africa or Nigeria and I can tell that they're being quite indifferent to the struggle of those people, I'll be able to input my knowledge and suggest that maybe they read Things Fall Apart so they can understand the book better. Now, I chose this is The White Man's Burden. It was a poem wrote in 1899, and it was supposed to tell America to go help Europe, because as white people, or as the Western civilizations, we had to go help the people who couldn't because they weren't smart enough, or they weren't civilized enough. And I just wanted to show this because it really shows a time when people were so indifferent about their struggle. Even in modern days, people are indifferent to the struggle. I was indifferent to it, and this is 2017. Not much has changed even since 1899. Yes, we do now understand that we did mess up, or Europeans messed up, I should say, and that it wasn't right for what Europeans did. But most people still don't do anything. They just say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, that sucks. It's not my fault though, so why should I help them?" And if you show this, people still kind of feel this whole white man's burden thing, even in modern day, and I just want people to be able to understand why this is so wrong. And maybe if they read through Things Fall Apart and research it even more, they'll be able to fully realize why this poem is so bad. Now, this is my works cited, and I just wanted to thank you guys so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.